I'm Lydia Scott, and I'll never forget the day Owen Caldwell tried to erase me. It was a muggy morning in Austin, Texas, the kind where the air feels like a wet blanket, and I was sitting in Horizon Defense Tech's smallest conference room, the one with a flickering LED light that made every meeting feel like a scene from a low-budget thriller. Owen, our CEO, leaned back in his overpriced leather chair, grinning like he'd just cracked the code to world domination. "You know what your problem is, Lydia?" he said, his voice dripping with that tech bro condescension that made my skin crawl. "You think rules still matter." No warning, no HR rep with a clipboard to soften the blow, just Owen, king of jargon, who once called due diligence a productivity bottleneck in a company-wide email. He was the kind of guy who thought compliance was just paperwork you could outsource to an intern. I'd spent 5 years turning Horizon, a scrappy defense tech startup with a server room that smelled like bleach and broken dreams, into a legitimate player with government contracts. I built the compliance division from the ground up. Audits, vendor checks, risk assessments, policies tighter than a drum. I was the shield between Owen's corner cutting and a federal indictment. But there he was, telling me I was redundant. "We're streamlining," he said, hands clasped like he was delivering my eulogy. "Speed over bureaucracy, vision over obstacles. You get it, right?" I didn't. Not when I knew he was planning to fake his way through government contract bids like they were terms of service agreements you click without reading. He slid a folder across the table. Severance, 6 weeks. Generous, he called it. Generous? After I'd spent years making sure his company didn't implode under legal scrutiny, I stared at the folder, then at him, letting the silence stretch until his smirk twitched, just for a second. I grabbed my phone, my badge, and the small notebook I'd carried since my first day and walked out. No tears, no cardboard box of desk trinkets, just a heavy ache in my chest and a quiet certainty in my gut. See, I knew something Owen didn't. A few months back, during one of his disruption sprints, he'd pushed me to roll out an AI-based contract validator to speed up our federal submissions. He wanted fast, I wanted bulletproof. So, I buried a failsafe in the code, a 2-factor cryptographic signature, tied only to me, impossible to fake or bypass. When he waved off my warnings as compliance theater and greenlit the rollout, he didn't just ignore me, he locked himself into my trap. All I had to do was walk away. That moment in the conference room wasn't just a firing, it was a declaration of war. Owen thought he could erase me, but I'd left a piece of myself in that system, a digital landmine waiting to detonate. As I stepped into the elevator, the doors closing on my old life, I didn't feel defeated. I felt like I'd just moved the first pawn in a chess game he didn't even know we were playing. The elevator doors shut, and the hum of the descent felt like the world sealing me out. I walked to my car in a daze, the Austin parking garage half empty, the air thick with the smell of concrete and exhaust. No one stopped to say goodbye, no one even looked up from their monitors. At a stoplight, I checked my email, only to find my corporate access revoked. My own documentation, years of my life, locked behind a digital wall. Typical. But in the back of my mind, a thought pulsed like a heartbeat. He can't fake my signature. No one can. Back home, my apartment was too quiet, not peaceful, empty, like a waiting room after hours. I sat at my kitchen table in faded sweatpants, a coffee mug I'd microwaved twice sitting cold in front of me. My laptop glared with job listings, each one a jab. Dynamic culture. Thrive in chaos. Translation. Smile while the ship sinks. I had 2 degrees, 15 years of experience, and certifications I could wallpaper a room with, but companies run by Owens wanted doers, not thinkers. One listing actually said that. I slammed my laptop shut, the sound sharp enough to startle my cat, Luna, from her perch on the windowsill. She blinked at me, unimpressed. At least someone didn't think I was obsolete. That night, I cracked open a bottle of Pinot Noir I'd been saving for a promotion that never came. A pity party for one, with Luna as my only guest. As the clock ticked past midnight, my inbox stayed empty, and I replayed my last months at Horizon. One project kept circling back, Owen's obsession with an AI procurement tool. He'd read some blog post about frictionless workflows and decided we needed it before the next investor call. Never mind that we handled sensitive defense contracts. Never mind that federal rules demanded ironclad authentication. He wanted flashy, he said. I pushed back once, and he gave me that look, like I was a bug he'd rather squash than acknowledge. So, I built his system, but on my terms. Deep in the code, I hid a requirement. A cryptographic signature, chained, timestamp locked, tied to my compliance credential. Not just any key, one issued through a federal pathway requiring in-person ID checks, biometrics, and an offline token. It was my fingerprint, encrypted in a vault Owen never bothered to inspect. When I explained it as a procurement integrity standard, his eyes glazed over. Ship it, he said, waving me off. 2 weeks before he fired me, we launched it. He thought it was a shortcut. I knew it was a dead man's switch, sitting there, wine bitter on my tongue, resentment burning in my stomach. I felt a flicker of something new. Relief. No more justifying my existence to men who thought ethics was a PowerPoint slide. No more meetings where some guy named Chad mansplained integrity using basketball analogies. But there was something darker, too. A hunger to see Owen's empire crack, to watch him choke on the consequences of dismissing me. I didn't just want justice. I wanted him to know he'd lost because he underestimated the woman he called redundant. I never planned to trade corner offices for cardigans, but 2 months after Owen's smug, streamlining speech, I was behind a desk at the Austin Central Library, explaining to a retiree named Doris how to download a coupon without crashing her email. See the paperclip icon? I said, pointing at her screen. She squinted like it was a puzzle from an alien planet. Bottom left. There. When she finally clicked it, her face lit up like she'd won the lottery. You're a genius, Lydia, she said, clutching her 20% off taco coupon like a trophy. I smiled, and for a moment it felt real. Her small victory was pure, uncomplicated, nothing like the corporate cage I'd escaped, but memories of horizons still crept in. One afternoon, as Doris shuffled off, I saw Owen in my mind, leaning over my desk, his breath reeking of overpriced espresso. This cryptographic thing, is it necessary? He'd asked, like he was questioning a toddler's finger painting. Yes, I said, not looking up. It's a federal requirement for contract approvals. Without it, they're not legally binding. He scoffed, a sound like a car backfiring. Can you simplify it? Something I can follow. I met his eyes, lied smoothly. For security, the final key stays manual, undocumented. Publishing it risks internal leaks. NIST standard. He didn't question it, just clapped my shoulder like I'd agreed to his fantasy football league. Fine, push it. Investors love that Tier 4 buzzword stuff. That undocumented step was my ghost in the machine, a signature only I could execute. Now, at the library, I sipped tepid tea and stared out at the parking lot, where faded pickup trucks baked under the Texas sun. Life was slower here. No red-eye flights to DC, no 12-tab spreadsheets, no buzz of fluorescent lights. I spent my days shelving romance novels and helping grandparents navigate TikTok to watch their kids' dance videos. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. I could breathe without feeling like I was holding up a collapsing dam. Still, Owen's voice lingered, preserved like a splinter under my skin. He hadn't cared about the system I built, too busy chasing his own hype. He didn't know the validator was a trap, a lock only I could turn. When it started rejecting his approvals, he'd have no one to blame but himself. I wasn't running anymore, wasn't twisting myself into knots to save people who saw laws as suggestions. For the first time in years, I felt steady, even if part of me was waiting for the storm I'd left behind to break. The library days blended together, shelves of dog-eared mysteries, retirees asking how to get the Google working. It was a Wednesday, I think, when my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn message. Sarah Nguyen wanted to connect. Sarah was the kind of colleague who brought homemade spring rolls to potlucks and knew every office rumor before it hit the group chat. She stayed clear of drama, but had a knack for knowing everything. I accepted her request, and seconds later, her message popped up. Hey, Lydia, sorry to bug you, she wrote. Quick question. Does the contract validate a log who authenticates approvals? Like, can we see who signed what? My heart didn't race, not yet, but the world sharpened, like catching a whiff of smoke before the fire. I typed back, "You mean Owen's AI system?" Her reply was instant. "Yeah. State review's happening. Feels sudden. Everyone's freaking. Legal's been in the doc vault for days. Owen's losing it. A state review." That was auditor speak for a pre-audit sniff around, like a bloodhound circling before the hunt. I leaned back in my chair, the library's hum fading. "This about the federal contracts?" I asked. She sent a zipper mouth emoji but added, "Lots of paper pulling. Let's just say that." A grin crept onto my face, not joy, but something colder, like watching a crack form in glass you know will shatter. Thought streamlining was supposed to skip the red tape, I wrote. Sarah's response, "Don't shoot the messenger. Just trying to recall who built that system." I left it there, no hints, no clues. If they were asking, my system was working, flagging approvals, blocking shortcuts, because no one knew how to bypass my signature. Owen had nodded through my warnings, assuming the machine would bend to his will. Now it was saying no, and he had no one to override it. That night, I dug through old notes I'd kept, not the code, but enough to remember the lock I'd built. Sarah's words echoed. "Owen's losing it. Good. Let him sweat." I was in a Walmart aisle, debating generic dish soap versus the fancy stuff, when my phone pinged with a news alert. I almost swiped it away, probably another recall on spinach, but the headline stopped me cold. Horizon Defense Tech under federal probe for contract irregularities. I froze, cart wobbling, as a toddler nearby wailed over cartoon vitamins. The article was vague, anonymous sources, authentication pathway issues, but I didn't need details. I could see it. Owen yelling into a dead Bluetooth, legal teams sweating over incomplete spreadsheets, some assistant scrambling for a file that didn't exist. MY's system had caught a ghost signature. Mine, used after I'd been fired. It had cross-checked HR records, seen I was gone, and screamed foul. The feds were circling now, and Owen's empire was cracking. I laughed, sharp enough to startle a guy eyeing denture cream. It wasn't just vindication, it was a checkmate I'd set up months ago. I tossed the cheap soap in my cart and walked out with a purpose I hadn't felt since Horizon. Closure wasn't a quiet hug. It was hearing sirens outside the office that betrayed you and knowing you laid the trap. Back home, I pictured Owen's conference room, that same warped lighthouse painting on the wall, a cheesy nod to resilience. But now it was filled with auditors and blazers, laptops open, notepads scribbled with terms like chain of custody and fraudulent intent. One of them, the quiet type who notices coffee stains on reports, was probably matching my termination date to contract timestamps, building a case with every red flag. They'd started polite, but now they were seizing servers, not offering advice. Owen's shortcuts had caught up, and my system was the noose. I was wiping down a library cart, small-town flu season, don't ask, when Sarah messaged again. "It's nuts," she wrote. "They're cloning drives, unplugging servers, walking out with them. Owen's melting down. No one's talking to media. Execs are locking doors." My pulse hummed, not with fear but with a cold thrill, like lightning I'd summoned was finally striking. "What are they after?" I asked. "Big contract signed after you left," she replied. "Auditors keep saying sequence doesn't complete." I knew exactly what that meant. My system was built to catch inconsistencies in high-value defense contracts. Anything over $1 million needed my cryptographic signature, a time-locked, immutable handshake. Someone, guess who, had tried slapping their name on approvals my system wouldn't recognize because I wasn't there to sign them. Sarah added, "They're calling it a fatal gap in the approval trail. I'm staying out of it, but it's bad." I stepped outside, the Austin wind tossing leaves across the lot. For once, the storm wasn't mine. I could see Owen in that conference room, jaw tight, trying to explain why his approvals didn't validate. My system wasn't confused. It was doing its job, screaming, "This isn't possible." The feds were listening, and I felt the ground shift under me. Not crumbling, but steadying. I'd spent years being the one who held it together. Now, I was the one who'd let it fall, IT was early one Saturday, still tangled in sheets with Luna sprawled across my chest, when Sarah's message lit up my phone. "It's official," she wrote. "They're zeroed in on one contract, multi-million-dollar DoD deal. Passed every check except one. Signature block failed validation." I sat up, Luna grumbling as she slid off. I'd written that error message myself. Incomplete authentication event. It triggered when my signature was missing, absent, not expired, not wrong, just gone. Sarah kept going. They tried to force verify it. Brought in IT forensics. No luck. IT director got fired on the spot. I almost laughed. Poor guy, he was just a bystander, not the mastermind. My system didn't just flag errors, it locked them. You couldn't fake my key, couldn't backdate it, couldn't override it without leaving a neon trail. Sarah added, "Owen's name's coming up. Forgery, falsifying documents. Everyone's dodging blame." Then her last line hit like a gavel. "They know the signature needed a role that doesn't exist anymore." The trap had snapped shut. Auditors had circled the timestamp, a signature from me, dated 2 weeks after I'd been fired. They'd checked HR logs, seen my termination, tried to reprocess the approval, and hit a wall. Owen had sworn he'd signed that contract himself, but the system called him a liar. I pictured him pacing the hallway where I used to brief ethics policies, tie loose, barking at staff to explain why his empire was crumbling. They couldn't. I'd made sure of it. The contract was for $18.4 million, logistics, expedited delivery. Owen's name was scrawled on it, bold as a politician's promise. But the metadata told a different story. My signature, timestamped on a day I was home watching trash TV, not in Horizon's office. That mismatch was blood in the water, and the auditors were sharks. Owen's affidavit, sworn, notarized, lawyer approved, claimed he'd finalized it. But my key was gone, destroyed when I turned in my badge. They knew it now, and I felt the weight lift, not just from my shoulders but from years of being dismissed. A letter arrived one morning, heavy cream envelope, red ink seal, no return address. Pure bureaucracy in paper form. I signed for it, hands steady from years of drafting policies no one read. Inside, a letterhead from the office of the Inspector General demanded a clarification interview. Minutes later, my phone rang, blocked number. "Miss Scott," a calm, accentless voice said. "Special Agent Lanning, Inspector General. We're reviewing validation issues with Contract 74B at Horizon Defense Tech. Can you confirm your employment details?" "Yes," I said. "Lead Compliance Officer. Terminated March mid-morning." He paused, then read a timestamp. My signature, logged 2 weeks after I'd left, on a contract Owen claimed as his own. "Can you explain how he could have used your signature?" he asked. I sipped my coffee, slow, deliberate, letting the silence hum. "He couldn't have," I said, voice clear as a bell. Another pause. I heard him lean forward, fabric shifting. "Let's talk about the system I built." I walked them through it, every protocol, every safeguard I'd buried like mines in a field. The signature wasn't just a name, it was a cryptographic lock, tied to me, destroyed when I left. They had the logs, the failed overrides, the IT director's frantic resignation email. But they needed intent, and I gave it. I'd built a system to protect integrity from men like Owen, who thought compliance was a speed bump. I wasn't angry anymore, wasn't smug, just ready. Owen had laughed, called oversight a luxury. Now he faced a federal probe because he thought he could outrun the one person who knew what a signature meant. But by the time I hung up, I saw it clearly. Owen in that conference room, auditors circling, his empire unraveling. My system's fingerprint, my work, my worth had caught him. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was the woman who'd built the trap that snapped shut, and for the first time, I felt whole. To everyone who's followed my story, thank you. You've walked with me through betrayal, struggle, and a hard-won triumph. If my fight resonated, if you felt that fire when the arrogant fall, hit that subscribe button. Join me where every line of code, every quiet choice, tells a story of grit, heart, and standing tall. Keep building your own truth, and I'll see you at the finish line.